What's up everybody, my name is Phil with Night Owl Studios. Now if you've seen my other videos, you've probably seen a pedal or two, you've probably seen me play a mashup, remix, go through a couple guitars. Now the most important thing out of all those is setting up the guitar to make those videos. It's often overlooked. I know we get really excited when we come in, we want to plug in, we want to play, and then before you know it, our strings are buzzing, our guitar doesn't play quite the way we want it to, and then it starts getting in your head and it just becomes a disaster. So instead of picking it up, taking it to a luthier and having somebody else set it up, why don't you watch this quick guide that really helps me out every time I have a bit of an issue with my guitar, and hopefully it'll get you up and running. Now full disclaimer, I'm not a luthier. I've just been doing this for quite some time and I feel comfortable doing it. So I'm not advocating for you to go ahead and start grabbing tools and doing this on your own if you don't feel comfortable. Please, by all means, take it to a luthier if you don't feel comfortable. Have somebody set it up for you, a full-on tech. Trust me, I don't want to get you into some trouble. Again, I just feel comfortable enough to do these things. Now, if you want to keep watching, we're going to get right into it. I'll show you some of the tools that I use, and then we're going to get right into it. It shouldn't be a long video. I'm going to try to make this relatively quick so you can get on your way and start playing. All right, let's take a look. Alright everybody, this is the guitar we're going to be working on today. This is an early 2000s Les Paul Custom. Now this was a 1968 VOS reissue. But what's kind of funky about it, it has a really thick 50s style neck. I don't really know why. I thought it was going to be a tapered 60s neck. But it's not. And this originally came with the VOS chrome style hardware. So the original pickups were actually chrome, but they were super pitted. Just destroyed. I destroyed them over the years. But I'm happy now because I have the Tom Holmes in there and I think it matches this guitar really well. Same with the bridge, same with the tailpiece, everything. I mean, it all rotted out. And including 3 out of 4 pots, they were destroyed. I mean, this thing, again, I didn't take very good care of it. Sweaty, spilled drinks all over it. I mean, it's been beat up over the years and it's my #1 guitar. I love this guitar. So we're going to go through a quick setup on this. I'll show you what I do first and foremost, and then we'll move on from there. Now, first things first. I don't know why I do this, but I really like to do this first off. I usually look down the neck. If I look from the headstock, keep it right under my chin, and I look down, you can actually see the fretboard itself all the way down. And you'll see a bow in it. You're going to want to have a little bit of bow in it. You're going to have a little bit of relief in there. So when you're playing, you're not going to get much buzzing. So right out of the gates, I'll look at it and I'll have a good idea. Okay, it's not very bowed, it's relatively straight. This thing should be pretty well on as far as the neck is concerned. So from there, I really want to look into it and we'll start using some of those tools I showed you earlier. Now the first thing I check is neck relief. Now with the guitar in tune, still with the old strings is just fine because I'm going to tune to the same tuning when I put the new strings on. Now the relief we're looking for this is 10 and 12 thousandths of an inch. So in between those two. Now I like to set mine to about 10 thousandths of an inch, maybe even a little bit less because I like it a little bit flatter. Now we'll take a look at this. The easiest thing to do is to take that straight gauge, or that straight line, and I run it right along the edge. Now it's kind of hard to see in a video, but you want it lined up on the first, and this goes all the way up to the top of the fretboard. Now you're going to want to measure in between that. So I look around the 7th, 8th fret. You can use a feeler gauge and make sure you can just slide it in there. Now I know it's a little hard to do and hard to see on this video, but if you can just get it in there, you should be okay. Now this is 10 thousandths of an inch. That one slid in. Now this one's a little bit hard to get in. So that 12 thousandths isn't going to work, but my 10 was good and it was a little tight, which is perfect, so we're probably around 9 thousandths of an inch. That means my concave is looking really good for what I like. So I don't need to adjust the neck relief on this. Now this is perhaps the hardest step. If my neck relief were off and I had to make some adjustments, let's think about that for a second. Now your guitar's neck is all the way down with the truss rod going through it. Now over time, humidity, temperatures, things like that, they're going to make the wood dry and flex. So over time you may get a concave neck, or maybe the other way. Now, to do this, to fix this, you're going to have to turn that truss rod in the guitar, and this is where a lot of people are nervous, and I understand. You hear horror stories of turning it too much, and it snaps the neck, snaps the headstock off. I haven't had that happen to me, thank God, but I take it really, really gingerly. I usually do quarter turns, but I still keep the strings on when I do that. So I'll usually do a quarter turn. If that is too concave and I want to bring it back straight, I'll turn that thing clockwise, a quarter of an inch, and that will stretch the truss rod out and go back to straight. Now, I've done it before where I did too much and it was going the other way. Then I had to go counterclockwise, still at quarter turns on the adjustment, and then I got that thing back to flat and then just a little bit concave into that factory spec. So again, full disclaimer, this is the hardest part if you're uncomfortable doing it. If you're close enough, my recommendation is just get a straight edge, something you know is a straight edge. If you could shine a light behind it and you see a little bit of light poking through, you're probably going to be okay. If it's completely flat, you're going to run into some issues, and if it's going the other way, again, more issues. Anyway, let's move on to the next step. So step 1 was neck relief. Step 2, I like to take all the strings off the guitar and give this thing a good cleaning. Now let's take a look. Alright, now with everything clean, let's throw some strings on this thing. Now let's recap. Step number 1, I checked neck relief. Now in this particular guitar, it was okay, so we didn't have to do any adjustments. But I did show that link on kind of how you would set that up, and of course, use at your own discretion. If you feel uncomfortable, take it to a luthier. And number 2, I took the old strings off and I wiped this baby down. Gave her a pretty good cleaning on the neck, and then put new strings on. Now my string choice these days goes between 2 different companies. One of them is Throwback, with their Vintage Choice Hex Core Pure Nickel strings. Now I use the Extra Lights, Extra Light Plus to be exact, which is 9.5 to 44, so it's an in-between. Now I've been using 10s forever, and I think I made my way up to 12s with some of these Les Pauls, which I really had to do some adjustments on those, but it sounded really good for lower tunings, etc. But then I decided I went back to a lighter string because I had more clarity. So that's why I really like these. They're in between a 9 and a 10, and they feel real good. They're nice and snappy. And the sets I got from Stringjoy are the same exact sets. So I really like sticking with these for now, and I think I'm going to use them for a little while. So now that my relief is done, now that my new strings are on, then I like to stretch the strings. I usually take them, hold them down at various spots in the neck, and I pull up with my right hand. So when my left hand holds the string down, push up, move it down, push up, move it down, push up, move it down, push it up, move it down, push it up. And I'll do that for all of them. Now don't be afraid to show a little bit of force. If you take this thing and you push it to the side, more than likely you're not going to break it. If you go nuts, sure, you'll break it. But give it a little bit of force. That gets it a good stretch. I actually learned this trick from a different guitar tech when I was doing a tech job back on the East Coast for a friend's band. And I would basically change the strings, and I was just bending it up here and there, and he came over and said that's not going to work. I asked him obviously why not. He said it's going to sound great to you, you're going to get some of it restrung, and then once you give it to them to go play on stage, their second or third chord, they're going to be looking at you funny. So he actually showed me that. I did that the entire tour, and it worked out great. I had not one single issue. So really, I can't stress to you enough, get these things stretched out a little bit, but don't go too crazy. You don't want to be breaking them left and right. Alright, let's move on to our next step. Now my strings are all stretched out. Let's get them all tuned up. I'm going right through my XFX3 into the tuner. Alright, now that we've done everything else, now we have our strings on, what do we do next? Now this is kind of an important part for me. This is getting my string height. Now I like to keep my action pretty low, right before it starts buzzing, and I'm kind of a heavy hitter. So I noticed a bit of a sweet spot for me that works on all these Les Pauls. I tried them on my Strats and I don't know why they didn't work. I had to go a little bit higher and then they worked out perfectly. But for these, I have this long ruler. I don't know if you could see it. Probably hard to see, but it has 30 seconds, 64ths, I believe 16ths. I use the 30-second side, and I like to get it at 3/30 seconds, and it's pretty easy how I do it. You have the guitar here on the 12th fret, in between the 12th fret, right here. I like to take my gauge on the 32nd side, which would be right here, and I just hold it down to the fret flat. Now you want to hold it against the string, but don't push the string up or down because you're going to get a false reading. So on this, I'm going to look at it, and I like it right at 3/30 seconds. And you'll have that string will be just over the top of the bar on the 30 seconds. Now this low E is perfect. And I do that all down the rest of the strings. Now here at the bottom, or at the top, whichever way you want to put it, it's a little low. So I'm going to go counterclockwise to push this thing up. See if I can get to 3/30 seconds. Perfect. They're all reading exactly the same. That 3/30 second mark is just below the string. Just below the string. They're all like that, consistent up and down the neck. And for all the strings, it's even a hair high there. You have one spot down. That should be perfect. Right there. Now next thing I check is my intonation. That's essentially the higher up I go on the neck of my guitar, are the strings still in tune. And these adjustments, these little saddles here, they can be adjusted forward or backward if you have any inconsistencies with that tune or that pitch. So the higher up I go, if it's flat, I'm going to adjust it. If it's sharp, I'm also going to adjust it to when I have an open string tuning. And at the 12th fret, if they are the same, then you know your intonation is good and you should be okay all the way up the neck. Sometimes, depending on the guitar, I've had some Les Pauls that are a little funky. I actually had to do intonation on about the 14th, 15th fret to match. I don't know why, it just happened to work out better and I had more consistent tuning all the way up the neck. So I'm just going to screenshot and have this thing fixed on the tuner itself, and I'll kind of go through each string and we'll see what we get for our intonation. Let's take a look. Now the last thing on this list for me would be pickup height. Now I'm kind of a set it and forget it kind of guy when it comes to pickup height, and I don't really follow specs. I usually follow my ears. Now, it sounds kind of funky, but there are specs. A lot of times I have used them and I did not like the sound at all. I mean, almost every single one of my aftermarket pickups, even the Gibson pickups, when I put it in their spec, I don't like it. It just didn't work out for me. So for me, I usually use my ears. I can use those as a starting point. Really, you're talking about an 1/8 inch in the back for the bridge and a 1/4 inch in the front on the neck. That's usually where I start. And then from there, I just use my ears and do about a half turn each time. Now, I don't like it to be overbearing. You'll start hearing some weird harmonics if you have it too close. If you have it too low, it's going to be a little dull. So I can always tell what's sort of a low-end thump that I get in there. If I have a nice low-end thump, then I know I'm pretty close, and I'll make a couple adjustments. But really from there, that's about it. I know I didn't get too technical into things. I'm sure a lot of people want me to get technical into those things, but if you're talking quick and dirty, get you up and going for a setup, this is usually what I do. I'll check those things off, and once they're good, I'm usually fine. I don't have any buzzing issues or anything like that. The point is to get comfortable with starting to mess with your guitar. Let's just do a quick recap. First things first, I check my neck relief. And luckily this guitar, I haven't set it up for a long time, and everything was great, even my intonation. So I check relief number 1, then I take the strings off, give it a wipe down. Definitely focus on the neck, because I know that thing needed a little bit of love as far as cleaning. Put some strings back on, make sure they're all stretched out, make sure they're all tuned up where I'm going to have it tuned up. Then I check my string height. Once my string height is done, then I check my intonation. After it's in tune, of course, check my intonation when it's open tuning, and then I'll do a harmonic up at the 12th fret and make sure it's okay. Then from there, I'll check my pickup height, and we should be good to go. Tune it up, get myself ready to play, and we're all good. I know I'm making it sound simpler than it may be for people that aren't used to it, so really take your time, really go through some of these steps, and of course, do more of your research. These are things I just pined over for a very long time, and I've been just fiddling around with these for a long time too. And eventually we'll go over probably a pickup change, electronic change, stuff like that. I'll go through that as well. But for now, this is just your quick and dirty setup, mostly focused on a Les Paul. And again, my takeaway, get yourself a few tools, get yourself a nice pad. I know in here it was kind of hard to get really zoomed in on some of these pictures on how I do it. And really, I like using the bed that I have in this room kind of as a working platform. It sounds kind of weird, but a nice squishy bed with obviously the material that I had just makes it easier for me. I like to stand over this thing and really get involved. So I tried my best to show you some of these things. So I hope this was helpful for anybody that may be wanting to set up their own guitar. And I am going to go over another video that kind of focuses more on strings, just simply putting strings on your guitar, a way that I've done it since I started 30 years ago, and it has worked every single time. Now I hope, again, you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. We got some more stuff coming for you. I'll have some more quick tips, and go play some guitar. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.